It's easy to fall into the trap, isn't it? Scrolling through endless feeds of breathtaking landscapes from far-flung corners of the globe. Those epic vistas, those dramatic skies. You sit there, camera gathering dust, thinking, my backyard, it's just ordinary. I know that feeling, that disheartening sense that your local area simply can't compete. But trust me, that perception can change. It did for me. When I realized I could just apply everything I had learned from other photographers and from traveling to my own home country, it completely revolutionized how I approached my creative vision and set me mentally and creatively free in a way I never thought possible. I started seeing not just my local landscapes with new eyes, but I started seeing opportunities everywhere. I really did discover the hidden beauty in the familiar. Can I ask you for a favor? Keep an open mind throughout this video and keep watching. You will thank me later when you fall even more in love with landscape photography because you can now photograph locally. It's all too easy to dismiss a video about local landscape photography on YouTube if you've already decided that your local landscapes suck. And that mindset right there is probably the one holding you back. And I get it. I used to think like that too. The most common complaint I hear on my landscape photography videos is that, Mads, I can't go to such amazing locations, so therefore I cannot take such amazing photos as you do, Mads. Therefore, in this video, I'm going to teach you how to take amazing photos in your local landscapes. And just as a side note, I'm not saying it's easy, I'm saying it's possible, but you will have to put in an effort. But hopefully throughout this video, I will show you that it's probably not going to require as much as you think it will. And obviously also, if it was easy, then everybody would do it and it wouldn't be half as fun, would it? So what can you do here and now? The first step is actually just to realize that it is possible and remember that what is mundane to you is probably exotic to the rest of us. A good example of this is the British rural landscapes. For you Brits, it may be super mundane, but for us non-Brits, it's one of the most iconic and characteristic parts of the British and Irish, for that matter, countryside, and it's something that I personally travel to and want to include in my landscape photos from Britain and Ireland. I just want to show you this fast clip from me and Nigel's course on local landscape photography. But especially, like, it was really those fields that I really wanted in there because coming over here to England, for me, that's just such a characteristic part of England and unusual thing for me to look at.
That's a good example of me probably not paying attention to something that's familiar to me. So I don't see the beauty of that because it's familiar, and I like it. I like your crop of it.
In this course, we dive much deeper into how we've approached and succeeded with our local landscape photography with a whole range of universal principles and techniques. How to find amazing local locations, how to benefit from the conditions, what strategies we use, what apps and services we use, how we react to it all, and of course we cover both how we shoot in the field, how we edit all the photos we capture for both beginners and experienced users. We show how to print, and we further discuss composition. There is so much to dig into. You can get the course via the link down in the description of the video. And it is not just me who've discovered my home country Denmark. A couple of examples are here: Alexandra's photos, and here you can see some of Christian's photos, who I've mentioned a few times in my videos. Both are fantastic photographers, and these are only two of my colleagues here in Denmark. And another great example could be the tiny country Luxembourg in Europe. And Luxembourg is like 20 times smaller than Denmark. And Denmark is already a small country that is like 10 times smaller than Sweden. Over the years, I have had guests from Luxembourg on my workshops. And each time I ask them, so what's to photograph in Luxembourg? Well, they just shrug their shoulders and say nothing. And honestly, I beg to differ, because when I search landscape photography Luxembourg, so many different examples pop up. And just look at this work from Christoph van Biesen. It looks amazing. Now I want to travel to Luxembourg and take photos. It is so easy to sit in Denmark and dream about going back to Iceland. But I can't get this, and this in Iceland. Remember, The grass is not necessarily greener on the other side. It is just different. I visited Rubjerg Knude Lighthouse many times when I was a kid and before I became a photographer. I didn't think much of it before some of the bigger German travel photographers on Instagram started going there back in 2017 and 2018, and it suddenly became a special Instagrammable location. And yes, I see why that is now. How many places in the world do you get a beautiful lighthouse in the middle of a dune? So I went there during a winter storm and had my first really great success with landscape photography in Denmark. And it's important not to dismiss locations like this just because they've been photographed many times. Figure out what's special for your local area and start by photographing that. You may have to move a bit further than your local area, but this is part of the training. Do what is easy to begin with, so you psychologically can get those easy wins, and by having these incremental successes, you can start applying what you learn more and more locally. So having success with that lighthouse made me realize that it is actually possible to get amazing landscape photos in Denmark. So now I just have to go and find more interesting locations. So the next step is what locations to find. And you may actually realize that it doesn't take that much. A lone boat, a lone tree, fog in forests, a lighthouse, some birds on a lake, an old windmill. You may have a local forest full of wild garlic, some other flowers maybe. You may have a small wooden or stone bridge crossing a stream. You may have a beautiful Gothic church or castle on a hilltop nearby. You may have some beautiful vantage points, some collection of trees on a small hill. Find all these different, either special or smaller scenes that you can then put on a map, and then you can come back to them again and again and again. Another thing that has benefited me well is simply just to embrace rural photography. Denmark has so many fields upon fields upon fields, and it was actually those fields that held me back from appreciating what landscapes I could capture in Denmark. So when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And just because rural landscapes are man-made does not make them less aesthetic. On the contrary, it's actually relatively easy to get simple and minimalist photos and even abstract photos in rural landscapes. If you look through my portfolio from Denmark, many of my photos are not taken in particularly interesting and even less so epic locations, but you are not in doubt about what the photo is about, and it still looks good. Well, at least in my completely unbiased opinion. And that leads us to the next step. And the next step is to wait for interesting conditions. And you may think nothing interesting ever happens. It's just dull weather all the time. Now you may think nothing interesting ever happens, but if you start seeing, you will realize that a lot of good stuff is going on. No, you don't get amazing sunsets or sunrises each day. You don't get amazing storm clouds each day. You don't get amazing autumn colors each day. You don't get noctilucent clouds each day. You don't get snow each day. You don't get spring bloom each day. You don't get hoarfrost each day. You don't get morning fog each day. You don't get clear nights to photograph the Milky Way each night. You don't get comets in the night sky each night. You don't get northern lights each day. You don't get heather or tulips each day. I think you know where I'm going with this and get the point, right? Accumulating all these different interesting phenomena, chances are you'll be able to photograph something interesting on average once every week or two. It may also happen that all the fun stuff happens within a short period over a few days with certain weather conditions like storm clouds or fog every morning, but then nothing happens for several weeks. Then it is just about using that time to your benefit. Point being is that there is probably something to shoot, and it is just about using it to your benefit. And if you live in a place with dull weather, then either wait for the weather to change or learn to actually benefit from the dull weather. Like if it's overcast, then just wait for some texture in the clouds. And if you never get any clouds, then you get clear night skies and sunsets and sunrises each day. Congratulations. But all this is something Nigel and I dive way deeper into in our course on local landscape photography. So when you combine step 3 and step 4, where you combine a subject with interesting weather conditions, it's just about using it to your benefit. And that's exactly what I did a couple of weeks back when I finally captured the northern lights on this location with the small boats that I've now visited several times on my channel here. And this is basically the biggest hack I can give you in regard to local landscape photography. Capture something that is somewhat mundane, but with epic or interesting conditions. And it's of course not about copying my photos one-to-one. It's about using this process so that you can go out and get your own unique photos. It's also a massive help to learn and understand weather, or at least follow the forecasts, so that you are ready when there is an added chance of whatever weather you want to use in your scene. The biggest challenge for me though, as I think with most of us, is to manage sleep, as sunrises usually provide us with beautiful conditions, and not to mention Milky Way photography late at night, or standing around waiting for the auroras. However, if you do learn to manage all this, you're already way ahead of 99% of people owning a pro or semi-pro camera. Using these methods have taught me to identify potentially interesting locations that could look somewhat dull to the non-photographer, and I can then come away with really interesting and beautiful photos like this, and these. So let's get a little bit practical and talk about what gear to actually use. And generally this is very simple. If you're going for some night astro-landscape photography, get a fast wide-angle prime with an open aperture so you can capture a lot of light in your exposures. But at least for my daylight local landscape photography here in Denmark, I found that I often photograph above 35mm, so you'll likely be good with a combination of lenses that fall within the range of 24 to 200mm. In that way, you have a little bit to work with on either side. Personally, I often use a combination of a 16 to 35mm f4 and my super zoom Tamron 28 to 200mm, and if I want a bit more reach, I use the Tamron 50 to 400mm instead. They're easy to combine with the 16 to 35mm. Obviously, over the years, I've built up quite a big collection of lenses, so I can mix and match depending on the situation. But those two are my go-to combinations for local landscape photography, and honestly, also for when I travel. The point being for me is to reduce the weight of my gear and make sure that I don't have to change lenses all the time when I'm out in the field. So the next step is that you are actually on location, and from here it's all about how you compose your photos. I have covered composition extensively on my channel here, but here are a few pointers. So the first thing is balance, and it's all about how you should generally distribute all the visually heavy elements more or less equal on either side of the middle, unless you go for a central composition. Also, keep it simple, stupid. As my dad always says, see how much you can isolate your subject or subjects and avoid distracting elements, and absolutely be sure to avoid visually heavy objects along the edges of your photos. And finally, you can use visual elements like leading lines or color to help guide the viewer's eye through the scene. Like a very saturated part of your photo will drag attention, just like the human eyes or human mind has a tendency to follow lines in a photo. If you want to learn much more about composition, you can get my ebooks on exactly that topic. Here I cover the compositional tools that I use in my photography, such as balance, visual flow, focal length, central or off-center compositions, depth, symmetry, scale, and much more. I make sure to get to the point fast with minimal text and tons of examples that obviously also makes them very easy to read. You can get them either standalone or bundled up with my newly released ebook all about light and landscape photography. There are links to all of them down in the description of the video. So the final step is simply just to take your time, because it takes time. Rome was not built in one day. All the photos I've shown in this video are a small collection of the best photos I've accumulated over a period of about 6 years with concentrated photography in Denmark on a full-time basis. The more you get out, the more you find, and the bigger the chance of getting that one special photo becomes. Another important point to make is that a lot of the really good photos that I take are actually unplanned photos. They're photos that happen when I either go to get a planned photo or simply put myself in favorable conditions in an interesting area for landscape photography. Check out me and Nigel's course, Mastering Local Landscape Photography, where we share all our secrets, this is all our techniques for actually getting really great photos locally. And if you haven't seen last week's video, which is a complete breakdown of how to think and use color in your landscape photos, definitely check it out. I got so much positive feedback on it. I'm sure you will enjoy it if you haven't seen it yet. Thanks to all of you who have given me so many compliments for that video. Besides obviously putting a lot of information in it, I also tried with a little bit of humor too. See you over there.